pleased to have Steve Howe with us here today on Beets, Beds, and Browns. I'm going to chop it up about farming and agriculture and raising livestock. Howe Farms is a family-run, diversified small farm in Crown Point, Indiana, growing hops, produce, pastured pork, grass-fed beef. They also do herbs, spices, honey, and edible honey products, as well as cultivated fresh vegetables. I know we wouldn't start a Saturday or Sunday morning without their bacon products. They're delicious. Please go ahead and check them out. Their farm stand is open on the weekends, and their website, you can order some gorilla package, howefarms.com. Howefarmsmeats.com. You got it. So thanks for joining us, Steve. I appreciate you coming out.
Appreciate you having me.
Looking forward to cutting it up. I was doing some research on you in advance of the interview, a Nuvo 16 interview that mentioned that talking to people about their passions makes you smile. So whether that was factual or not, that's exactly why we're here, and that's what I'm doing. So appreciate that. We always like to start with our guests on where you come from, where you've been, and where you're going. So if you can start that way, then we'll tackle a bunch of question and answer and keep it going.
Where I'm from Highland. I grew up in Highland. I live in Crown Point now. I used to be a teacher. Now I'm a farmer. We started that 9 years ago, and I quit to do it full time 5 years ago. And the big question there, where I'm going, that changes daily. The older I get, the more I realize I don't really know shit. And so I kind of changes all the time. What am I going to do next? It depends on how I'm getting better at certain things. And I do chase my passion all the time. So sometimes the passion meanders a little bit, but...
How would you define your passion? Obviously, we covered a number of different things you do on the farm, and a family man, and local community guy.
I would say that even defining it is hard sometimes. In what I do, I would say I am extremely passionate about the relationships that I have with people, as well as on the animal side, the animal welfare part. On the family side, having the ability to be there for everything is huge for me.
Yeah, you're not a 9 to 5 in the office kind of guy.
No.
What's a typical day look like for you?
These days, it's a 5 a.m. cup of coffee and working by 6. Kind of normal farm work, except I also have sales and deliveries and all of that. And then taking my kids to sports and homework and all that after 4 o'clock.
So the work day, up at 5, various farm tasks, everything from repair to mending fences to feed and livestock.
Daily chores are feeding and water. Water controls my life, whether it be plants, animals. There's too much, there's not enough, it's frozen. It's, I'm at the mercy of Mother Nature every day, and it always is water. So this time of year, luckily nothing's frozen, so I can have hoses and everything. Makes life a little bit easier. So the mornings are a couple hours of feeding, and same in the afternoon. In between there, different projects, different deliveries.
Sure. And delivery, you're obviously working with a number of commercial restaurants, supplies, and doing the residential delivery as well.
So we use UPS for our residential, but wholesale. The restaurants, I'm delivering the pigs. The hops, I'm delivering those because I want to have a bite to eat and something to drink too. So.
Well, and speaking of the relationships, right? It gives you an opportunity.
I love the people I work with. I can't even I wish I could put it into words just how much I appreciate it.
Fair enough. You mentioned, your former profession as a teacher. I know there's some family lineage that may have been the draw, but what got you out of teaching and into farming?
There's a lot of family lineage there. But I love teaching still. I feel like what I do is still educating in certain ways. I struggled with it's politicized a little bit more than I expected it to be, or it developed into that, or whatever it was. That's not for me to determine. But it was more political than I wanted it to be. It wasn't about the kids. It wasn't.
Yeah.
I am still passionate about teaching, actually, but that passion kind of gets taken away when you have to worry about other things.
We talked a little bit about the split amongst your passions, family, farming, continually educating. You also touched on the politicization of the ag environment, and if somebody who talks to homestead gardeners all the way through to commercial ag, we see that throughout the process, whether it's ag education or ag subsidies or some of the commercial legislation that gets written. Does that impact, and I don't mean this as a small farmer, I mean, you're over 50 acres, right?
I'm a little tiny guy.
Okay, so does that still qualify as small farmer?
Absolutely,
okay.
Absolutely. For us, how it impacts is like, we don't get any of those little subsidies or anything like that. But we get every regulation. So we're jumping through hoops constantly, especially on where we can sell things, where things can be processed, all of that kind of stuff. So it really limits us in what we can do because we don't have these huge facilities, even in this area, for us to use. If I want to sell something to Chicago, which is 15 minutes away, I mean, I have to haul something 3 hours each way to get it processed just to get it there.
And I'm not well read on the topic, so I'm relying on you for your expertise. But I know, didn't they relinquish some of those legislations during COVID and allowed more local processing? Or
they didn't change. So they didn't change where you could sell things. The processing that, as far as I know, that got changed a little bit was more just for the big guys.
Yeah.
Like the little ones didn't.
Removing inspectors and making their process a little more seamless.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Like, we're all state inspected, so we have to go through those processes on the farm, as well as the people that do the processing for us. To kick it up to the next level, though, in order to, Southwest Michigan and Chicago is my market as well, but I can't sell them.
Because of a processing travel time?
Yeah, it's a processing facility. So the closest one for us is almost Indianapolis. When you have to haul animals there and then come back and then go get product and come back, it's a 3.
Yeah.
You're looking at 600 miles just to, the margin's gone.
Who would you say is the primary contingent of your market locally?
Demographically?
Well, just, is it
middle-aged women?
Middle-aged women, okay, yeah.
According to Facebook.
Yeah.
That's generally who.
And are they doing whole animal purchase, or
no?
In the farmer's market? Or?
So on a whole animal side, Provecho and Ramen District in Crown Point, they get pigs every week. They have a few different restaurants that they use it for. Different things go to different, so they're using the entire animal, which is great. Every bone, every piece of fat, it's being turned into stock. It's being used, which is ideally, that's how you.
Makes for a delicious meal, yeah.
It does, and it also makes the animal go a long way. When you're just making bacon out of it, or bacon and pork chops, that animal has to be extremely cheap.
Yeah.
Because you can't do anything with everything else.
And I know it's not a one-man operation.
Oh,
your whole family assists, and if even property next to you is family-owned, and you work really tightly as a family.
Yeah. No, we got. I can't even explain how lucky I am to have the family I am. I have the most supportive wife in the world that lets me chase any dream or idea I have, and not just lets me, supports it and is all in. I have kids that do the same. I have parents that move next door to us, which, then we rent some acreage from them. That expanded that as well. But they bought the house that my dad's grandpa and great grandpa were born in, which is kind of a neat,
come full circle.
Yeah,
yeah.
So they're retired. We're retired now. My mom's a professor, but it's
education's in the blood. Yeah.
It is.
I read the concept in one of your other interviews online about living museum and documenting it. I've actually had the benefit of touring the facility. It's phenomenal, and there was plans even there for next. And how do you keep the balance between a growing land contingent, increased products and services, and still maintaining the day-to-day work? It's
a constant battle, but I do think one day, as this becomes more, it's a full business now. Eventually I have to work on the business and a little less in the business, that kind of, and hopefully I can hire someone, or my kids will get older or something, but that balance is a constant issue. There's this time of year, there's not time. In the winter, I try to do more of my planning. There's a little bit more time for that. But unfortunately there's things that get kind of pushed some days.
So every spring, the homestead gardener or the small backyard gardener is reading tons of articles about things like square foot gardening and no-till gardening, hugelkultur, and all these different things. You're tilling a field and putting seed in the ground and things are coming up. Is that right, or is there different?
Our gardens are small. So
Okay.
yeah, we have maybe an acre of gardens in different locations. Those are small. Though it's not, we don't have the big fields. Yes, we do some tilling and we do some no-till. It's just dependent on what we're doing. They're chemical free. All of our gardens are, but there's still a lot of work there this time of year. On the hop side, those plants are perennial. So a lot of that is putting strings in the ground, training all of them up the strings, getting all of that started. And then working cover crop in because we cover crop hard in the hop yards, just trying to reduce the synthetic fertilizer additives,
In terms of weeds, I know you sprinkle all sorts of seeds in the pastures where the pigs are, so they can have fresh greens and other vegetables coming up. For the gardens, is there a go-to weed barrier tactic that you use?
Yeah, hands.
Everybody's looking for the quick solution, not hands.
We really like the landscape fabric that you can get at some of the greenhouse stores. I think there's one up by Schaumburg. Like, it's expensive, but you get them like 8 feet wide and 50 feet long. Burn holes in them. Those have helped a lot, and then a lot of hands.
Yeah.
We've tried flaming, we've tried some of the different like vinegar and whatever sprays and
just drop salt on them. Yeah, all of it.
We've tried that. Yeah. That works for certain bugs. I want to say over the years we've tried almost everything, and hands work the best.
Yeah. Can't get rid of the manual side of it.
No.
How about pest remediation and control? I assume there's some level of companion planting with the way that you do things. And
pest wise. We will occasionally use like some neem oil, and there's a couple of organics that like different bacterias that you can use that we have used in the past. But overall, it's moving plants. If you have squash at the same place you had last year, but you have those that larva, or those eggs in the soil, you're going to have issues. If we can rotate certain crops like that, it helps.
Yeah, no, definitely. In our raised beds, we've done that. Planted squash in the same spot year over year, and you lose the whole plant. They just get infested.
That's definitely the one that I've noticed it the most. Certain ones, what people need to realize is there's a pest threshold. It's kind of like COVID, right? Like or the flu. Like if you get a certain amount, you're gonna have this. And that it works with pests. There's not every leaf's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
Not every fruit is going to be perfect. And once you get over the fact that there's going to be weeds, there's going to be bugs, there's a threshold before we need to do something. You kind of quickly are okay with it.
Another gem unearthed in some of the interviews was talking about seasonal eating and how that's the best way to support local farming.
Mm-hmm.
And would you talk a little bit about what seasonal eating means for someone who's used to going to the grocery store and getting whatever they want on demand? And is that a sacrifice? Is that an exchange? What does that look like?
I think the sacrifice part of it is actually for the consumer in a health side. When you look at nutrient density, what you're going to get out of your garden in July is vastly different for that same tomato that you're getting in December from who knows where.
Or the year-old apple.
Exactly. That's a whole other issue. The apples are a different world. But when the nutrient density of things changes vastly. Just like you're shipping that product, it's 2 weeks old. What's even on that in order to get it there? And it works like that in the meat world too. And that's one of the reasons we're not totally grass-fed beef anymore too. The grass-fed, grass-finished in the winter time. How are you doing that in an area that only has 6 months of grass? That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
The nutrient density of the hay then has to be a certain, and that basically doesn't exist.
Sure. Well, and that's kind of the argument against the commercial ag and degrading the soil so much that it doesn't have the benefits or micronutrients included in. Would you consider yourself a craft farmer? Is that an appropriate term?
Sure. I'm a niche guy. People have called us boutique. They've called us. I go with craft just because generally we're in craft beer too. It follows suit.
Nice.
But I think any of it is a craft. Any farming, any music, any garden, it's all a craft. You're figuring out little things. That's hell. I think it's even coming up with the different systems that work in your place as a craft in itself.
Absolutely. I watched a permaculture video about someone, I think they had a half acre, and they slowly transitioned from a typical lawn to a functioning permaculture environment. They talked about how, in that transition, farmers markets were their first and at one point highest revenue source. Then they got into tours, then they got into educational consulting, then they got into landscape consulting. In terms of, and I'm not looking for numbers, but in terms of business makeup, what's the farm turning out? What's the revenue sources? What are maybe some investments in speculative loss leaders, or what does it look like to run a 50-acre farm as an individual family?
So for us, we don't do farmers markets because there's no real regulation on them. And I know I just said something negative about regulation, right? But you can go to the auction, buy produce, and then come to that place and sell it as organic because no one checks anything.
Yeah.
And so we wanted people, instantly we knew we wanted people to the farm. We want you there. We want you to know, hey, this doesn't smell like shit, but there's hundreds of animals everywhere. Why? And we used to do a lot of tours. My kids kind of ruined that. That and COVID happened at the same time. But tours are coming back now. This year we are going to offer some. As far as our revenue goes, we are maybe 40% wholesale, 40% retail. And then that last 20% is kind of our hops and some different things like that, which are all wholesale. But on the meat side, it's probably splitting out evenly. Lost leaders, everything depending on, it's dependent all the time. Because animals sometimes will take more to raise, sometimes less. But chicken was always a lost leader for us. Eggs were always, we could sell them for $5-6 a dozen, we lost money. Because pasture raising hundreds of animals, the movement was constant labor.
Intense,
yeah. Syrup, we do syrup. That is a complete loss. We do it because my dad likes to do it. Yeah. He likes it. He thinks it's cool.
I drove past the farm when you guys were doing the sugaring and all the lines from each of the trees. It was really fun.
Yeah. He's retired. That's what he wants to do. Fine.
Nice.
So, but yeah, I bet that's.
How many maple trees do you guys have between the two lots?
I think we only tap like 50 trees.
Okay.
So let's say that's
a small batch.
Yeah, it's all small batch and it's all wood fired. So we try to get a little bit of that smokiness in, but not overwhelming it. Yeah. So we've kind of created some cooking mechanisms for that over the years. Trying to think. Right now, I think everything might be a loss leader.
There you go.
Well, everything, the price of everything's going up, and we haven't adjusted our pricing.
Okay.
We are focusing everything on efficiency. To do things the way we do, without soy, without antibiotics, on a pasture rotation, it costs a lot more. Even buying feed in bulk, it costs me way more than what the other guys are, just because ingredient-wise, it's higher.
Yeah.
And my animals live at least twice as long most of the time, and that it's twice the feed. So
and that's just a shortening of you're lengthening the life by shortening the fat, or not ascribing to the quick turn of the commercial.
Sure, I want to develop flavors. Yeah. That's my goal. It's quality, it's animal welfare, it's health. Those are like the things that we're trying to pump.
Yeah.
And we always say it's breed, feed, and lifestyle when it comes to that. We have developed certain breeds through different crossing things to do one thing. We have our feed that is specific, that's taken 5 years of different changes and working with nutritionalists and everything. And then the lifestyle has changed over the years too. The pasture rotation's been there, but it's changed significantly. And we've tried to develop this system based on the animal and the animal movement, which is making it more efficient, which is cutting down some of those labor costs. So we're trying to do that so we don't have to raise the prices. And if all the prices have gone up 20%, if we're 20% more efficient, now we're competitive in a price standpoint as well.
In a market that you were having to charge a premium for in the past.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, when you go to the grocery store and bacon's $9.99 a pound, well, ours is $10 a pound.
But delicious. Can't stress that enough. Definitely check out the farm stand, swing by, pick up Italian sausage, sauced pork country sausage, bacon, a number of other things. You talked about the flavor, and I know there's a special breed of pig that you raise, and the pork itself is actually a shade of red, darker. Can you talk about that and the curation of that through your process?
So the breed, so we cross Mangalitsa, Berkshire, and then we have a little bit of like red wattle and a little bit of Yorkshire in our bloodlines. So through the years, we've tried to develop an animal that's going to thrive on pasture. It's going to produce a product that is much different than what you see at the grocery store. And the red, you know, flavor standpoint, I get a slightly more buttery kind of flavor from it. It's definitely more tender, and the fat melts at a lower temperature, so it's a little bit more forgiving, I feel like, on a pork chop side. And in a sausage, I feel like it helps, you know, a lot of times people overcook that stuff.
Yeah.
Gives it that little extra, like, you get a couple minutes to not screw it up.
Yeah. Well, and it's a leaner pork, too, leaner product overall, with the sausage, the bacon, and the pork itself.
It's a fattier animal, but the fat does not eat like fat. It eats almost it's melty. It's not what you think of when you think of like that gristly.
Well, and it's not a pan full of fat when you're done with any of the process and cooking of them.
No, and that's part of that is you know, the mixture. You know, we have them do more of an 80-20. 70-30 is generally a little too fatty.
So that's in the butchering?
That's on the, yeah.
Okay, so the pork is there to provide the flavor and the hardiness, and then you trim some of that.
And the red is, so the color of the meat is based, so pork isn't a white meat. Like that was essentially the way to make it, it's like chicken, guys. Yeah. You know, but it's going to be a white meat from the grocery store because it doesn't move. It's confined in an area. Why is beef red? Well, it's the movement. You know, the myoglobin going through the muscles. Our pigs graze exactly like cows. If you look at it, I'll post on Instagram reel or stories probably once or twice a day, animals in a pasture. Those pigs are literally eating grass just like a cow would.
You know, last year in season 1, we interviewed Tulip Tree Gardens out of Beecher, Illinois. They're a commercial CBD farm. They're doing regenerative farming principles. Great tour. I know I've been on your place. Amazing tour as well. Is it regenerative in terms of what you guys are doing with the changing pastures and different animals and different plants, or is that a delineation that you wouldn't ascribe to?
It's kind of like sustainable. I don't know exactly what the definition is. So I can tell you from our standpoint, and especially on the pasture side, we've never seen better seed growth. We've never seen better water retention. We've never seen better. I mean, the amount of good grasses that come back when you rotate animals rather than just have a landscape of dirt.
Yeah.
All of that is. I mean, we see huge benefits from a land side and health side of the animals as well. Is that regenerative? I don't know. Is it sustainable? I don't know. I feel like those are kind of like the word natural.
Buzzwords, yeah.
Yeah, we can say them, but do they mean anything? Like, you know, when we started this farm, sustainability was the big word, you know, everyone wanted to talk about. I'm like, I don't even know what that is, though. I guess generational sustainability is something I want. Is this something I can pass down? Is this, but from a farming thing, like anything you could say is sustainable.
Sure. Yeah,
however you twist it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, along with buzzwords, we'll just throw another one out here, kind of circular economy.
Okay.
I know you use spent grains to feed some of the pigs. I know
we tried. It doesn't really work, but we tried.
Okay. Do they not eat it, or is
no?
it?
Its nutrient density is very low, and so you're trucking stuff everywhere. We use it for compost more than anything now. It's great. It composts very well.
Nice.
So that's the spent grains. We have a couple big piles back there.
Nice. And that just slowly breaks down, and you don't have to worry about the alcohol in it or anything like that?
No, there is no alcohol.
That's what spent means. Is,
right. All the sugars have been taken out through the brewing process. So, and that's part of the problem, actually, why it's not good as a feed source.
Okay. No sweet, yeah.
Nothing in it.
I've heard through some of your marketing materials, worst day is the last day. And I know you talked about elongating the life, building the flavors, free range, having them roam, enjoy. I assume that goes all into that worst day being the last day that ultimately gets from farm to fork. So
we strive to give them one bad day. That's it. All of us would die for one bad day. We'd all be happy as hell, right? So I even give the animals a last meal. Like I do not like that part. That is absolutely one of my least favorite things. But it has to happen. We all understand how the circle of life works. We're all going to die. They are too. It's how it works. I have to be strong enough to do that to make sure, frankly, my kids can eat something that's higher in omega-3s and higher in vitamin D and good for them. And I can take that on when others can't. We always get the question, well, if you treat them like a pet, how are you going to eat them? I'm like, if I go to the store and I don't know how that animal's raised, that bothers me more.
Absolutely.
It's like, and I told you this before the pod, it's like a hospice nurse. I don't understand how they do it. But I want someone that cares so much taking care of me if I'm in that position, or my mother, or, it's not for everybody. It's hard.
And if you follow Steve on Instagram at Howe Farms, you see that these animals end up coming into his home, and the care doesn't stop in the pasture or on the farm. Talk to me about some of the pets that have entered your residence.
Animals get sick. Animals have issues, especially little ones. So we occasionally will have little animals that, for whatever reason, they're not able to make it with mom, and they end up in our house, and they end up on a bottle, and they become part of the family.
Yeah.
If they so we have rules like you can't name them until they're so many hours old, so many days, because it is you're taking them from mom for a reason. Their best chance of survival is with mom, 100%. So it's a last resort when we take them inside. There's something massively wrong with them. And we have success stories, and we have ones that did not make it, unfortunately.
The circle of life goes both ways. Right?
And my kids learn unbelievable things through that. I learned crazy things through that.
It seems shocking, but part of the journey and why I felt advocacy and education in the gardening and farming movement was I used to work for a county fair, and they had to educate people that chocolate milk doesn't come from black cows, and that eggs don't come from the store. They actually come from chicken. And, once I realized that there was that level of disconnect and lack of education, I figured if there's anything I can do to aid in that process. And, hearing about your passion for education and your family's lineage in education, what are some things you'd like to leave with our audience, either upcoming events or things coming up at Howe Farms, or things that you'd like to leave with our audience?
Well, on a things coming up or anything like that, you can look at our website, you can look at our social media, and all of that's on there. As far as actually something, know where your food comes from. I don't care if it's from me. Know where it comes from. The best health that you can, or the best medicine you can put in your body is the food. And you are what you eat. You are what those animals eat. You are what gets put onto that produce. There's a reason people are sicker. There's a reason. Know where it comes from.
Absolutely. Well, with that, me and my viewers, thank you for sharing your time and
thank you for having
making
me.
it that we can put good food on our plate, that we can know where it's from, and that we know how it's treated, and that it's treated well.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.